week we got a letter from Marjorie and Glennis in Coonabarabran. Marjorie writes, "Dear Filthy, my girlfriend Glennis and I are planning a trip to Japan. We recently heard about a walking trail between the towns of Tsumago and Magome that sounded nice. We are hoping that with your experience you might be able to help us with some tips. We are both huge fans of the show and love the new format. Yours sincerely, Marjorie and Coonabarabran." Well, thanks for your letter, Marjorie, and keep them coming. To be honest, the towns of Tsumago and Magome have been on the bucket list for us here at Have Bear Will Travel, and so this week we decided to take up your challenge. The 534 kilometre or 332 mile Nakasendo Trail connects Japan's capital Tokyo with Kyoto, and you can walk the whole thing. But this time we focused on the small section between the picturesque towns of Tsumago and Magome. We didn't need much for the walk, so we first took a train to Nakatsugawa and left our luggage at the Tourist Information Centre right next to the station. We then got a local train to the nearby town of Nagiso with only the things we'd need for one night. You can get a bus from Nagiso to Tsumago, but it's part of the Nakasendo Trail and it's only an hour or so we decided to walk. That night we stayed in Tsumago and the next day we walked to Magome. We spent about 2 hours in Magome for lunch and wandering the main street, and then moved on to Nakatsugawa to pick up the bags. If you decide to walk between Nagiso and Tsumago, it's fairly pretty. Heading left out of the train station, you soon come to a sign for the Nakasendo Trail, and it's reasonably straightforward from there. This part is mainly forest and residential. The roads are narrow country roads with hardly any cars, and there's a detour that you can take to the site of an old castle. After coming off the train, we were happy to be working the legs a little, and we soon reached Tsumago. Tsumago is a fairly touristy town, but it's beautiful to look at, and in the afternoon when the day trips disappear, you can pretty much have the place to yourself. In the Edo period, between the 16 and 1800s, there were many post towns like this. They were used as stopping points for travellers to rest, and would have been visited by the shogun, samurai, and all sorts of riffraff. Booking well in advance here is essential, and not just a day or a week ahead, but more like a few months at least, as the town books out really early. Most of the accommodation is traditional Japanese in style, and they offer dinner and breakfast as part of the stay. They vary in quality, but we haven't been disappointed the few times we've come here, and it's a nice change from the cities. There aren't a lot of options for eating out in Tsumago after dark, so if you're a big eater, I'm looking at you, United States, you might want to bring some snacks. As the sun sets, the lamps in front of the shops and Minshukus are lit, and it's all very ambient. I know all the accommodation was full and there were technically other people staying and living here, but I hardly saw anyone. There's an interesting shrine with the country's first rickshaw inside, and a river flows beside the town. It's a nice place to just sit and relax. For the 80% of the world's population that now lists photography as their main hobby, there are lots of nice shots to be had. I downloaded a few choice ones that I found on Google and posted them to Facebook because mine were all pretty average. Oh, and we saw a cat. Come on. Come on, Now, again, cats, much like monkeys, much like deer, don't like bears. Turns out I wasn't the first bear to have wandered the streets of Tsumago, so Snappy Tom might have had a good reason to keep his distance. While we were there, a warning came over the town's PA system of a bear in the area. At first I thought it meant me, but apparently not. So today we're doing the Nakasendo Trail between Tsumago and Magome. It's a beautiful walk, there's a tea house on top, lots of lovely scenery. Should be a good day. The walk between Tsumago and Magome takes around 2.5 hours and it's pretty easy. There are signs in Japanese and English and the trail is really well maintained. It's very beautiful and not as busy as we expected. We've only ever been here at the start of summer or at the end of spring, and there are lots of flowers and butterflies and stuff at that time. It's lush and green, and once you get away from the main road, there's an easy climb to a mountain pass. There's wildlife if you look hard enough. bears, like I mentioned before, but there's also birds like woodpeckers and cuckoos and snakes like the cuddly pit viper. There are some little detours that are well worth it to see the waterfalls, but look, I don't recommend a swim. The water is ridiculously cold. The sort of cold where you can't catch your breath. The sort of cold where you get out and realise that your lower back is clenched so hard that you've actually done some serious damage, and you spend the next few months dealing with a sharp pain every time you sit down or stand up. Along the walk there's a little tea house. Been here for a while. It's run by volunteers. Look out, you've got to be careful of the guy that runs the place. The guy that runs the place is a bit dangerous. The tea house has been here for 300 years and is run by volunteers. Check out the visitors' books to see all the famous people they've had come through. Yeah, you get a lovely tea in here. It's a nice place to stop on the walk. It's sort of midway. Very serene. Like I said, cuddly pit vipers. So the Nakasendo Trail is quite a long way. Some of it's road, but then a lot of it is just these lovely paths. There's a lot of these stupid bells along the trail, enough to give me nightmares, but you soldier on. Once over the pass, it's pretty much all downhill to Magome. On a clear day the views are quite nice, and sometimes there are monkeys in the fruit trees and floating on clouds. We saw a cat. You come across a lot more people on this side of the walk, and it somehow seems less remote. If you're hungry, there's a cafe on the way down the hill, and there's also a lot of shops selling souvenirs and stuff. Magome is pretty small, and without stopping you'd be through it in around 5 minutes, but again, it's a nice place to just sit and imagine what it was like in Edo times. Like most of Japan, there are sculpted gardens and bubble trees. I never get sick of the bubble trees, and if anyone wants to come around to my place and do that with my bottle brush, I'd appreciate it. We bought steam buns for lunch and got the rundown on the local scene from some of the residents. You can take a bus at the bottom of the hill to Nakasendo Station, but we decided to hike the rest of the way. There are some interesting points. You go past a few temples and a preserved samurai road, and depending on the time of year, there are some amazing flowers around, but otherwise it's not that great. For a lot of the walk, you end up in suburbia near main roads and convenience stores, and doing it this way adds a couple of hours to the hike that might be better spent getting somewhere else. If you're not in a hurry though, or if you just like a walk, the first hour is pretty sweet. At Nakasendo Station there's an ice cream vending machine that's pretty good, so make sure you check that out before you get your bags, as you might not see another one. There it is on the left, look quick! So that's it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. The towns of Tsumago and Magome are very pretty, and the Nakasendo Trail is well worth it. Thanks again to Marjorie and Glennis from Coonabarra Brand for their letter. I hope we helped with some tips, and I hope you enjoy your time there. See you next week.